All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of the Utopias podcast. This one is just really quite something. Here is a conversation with a female Buddhist monk who is also a scholar and a professor, the Venerable Dr. Pooja Dabral. Venerable Dabral teaches Buddhist studies, philosophy, and comparative religion and literature, yet is also a practicing ordained monk focused on Buddhist psychology, the Mahayana tradition in Buddhism. And Dr. Dabral has also, Venerable Dabral, like we can also say, has published papers on the philosophy of emptiness and cognition in Buddhist psychology. Venerable Dabral is an assistant professor at the Nalanda University. This is an incredible story. The Nalanda University was the most thriving and, from my understanding, the biggest university in the world in Bihar, in India, very close to where the Buddha obtained enlightenment. It was a huge international university with students from many different countries. And this is an old university that existed, up to at least it was thriving well over 1,500 years ago. So this conversation is a conversation with a Buddhist monk, like others, like other conversations with spiritual figures, kind of helping all of us understand the connections between psychology, our own feelings of loneliness, our own feelings of confusion and anxiety, and how there are some simple practices, meditative practices, we might even call them technologies, that actually can allow and empower us to feel the truth, that we are not alone, that we're not isolated. We may feel that there are such, that such is our reality, but in many different ways, we can overcome those connections through a recognition that almost anything and everything that happens to us comes from an external source that is far beyond our control, and perhaps something we'll just never know. So there are many great nuggets to this conversation. I invite you all to check it out and enjoy. This was originally recorded in January 28th, 2025. Everybody, please enjoy this latest episode of Utopias, a conversation with the ordained Buddhist monk and professor, and a woman, most importantly, as well, on top of all of this, the Venerable Dr. Pooja Dabral.
Thank you so much, Professor Srinivasanji. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much to your team for, organizing this. I know we have been struggling to have a common time, but finally, it's really meaningful, and it tells me a lot about yourself, your concern for others, particularly younger generation, and how the insights from Buddha's profound and compassionate teachings can benefit them if they have the opportunity to learn from it or listen about it. So thank you so much for having me.
I feel really joyful to hear that and to be seen that way. And it's so true. I, in my own life, have been deeply transformed and found myself and found peace and found more community and found more purpose thanks to the teachings of the Buddha, but also a number of other teachings that are very aligned with these teachings from other spiritual and religious traditions. So we're not only diving into the philosophical realm, but actually the deeper questions of, like, in our conversation today, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be on this planet? What does it mean to be part of a constellation of other lives, humans, non-humans, beings in the different realms, as they say in Tibetan forms of Buddhism? But also to bring this home, because you're a young scholar and a young ani, like young nun, and a female ani as well, which is, I think, very remarkable. So I want everybody who's listening to this to know that in your own story, which is extraordinary, it is actually a story that all of us, all of our listeners, can feel a connection to. So what I want to do is just start by asking you about your own path in your own life. So, like, where did you grow up? What brought you to being teaching in a university, but also becoming a monk or nun? share a little bit about like, some stories, if you will, how you grew up and where you grew up, and there's so much to your story. So just we'll start with that.
So, thank you for this question. But there is nothing extraordinary about my life. Very simple, like any other child in India. I grew up, so basically, I belong to Uttarakhand, a beautiful part of India. You must know that it's a very beautiful, spiritually inclined, and also, very beautiful tourist place also nowadays. And people are very, very nice, compassionate, innocent, and also very, very, interested in education, studies, and to explore the different aspects of life. But I belong to that area, but I was not born there. Actually, I was born and brought up in Delhi.
Hmm.
So I have a very less exposure to my own hometown, which is my native place, that is Uttarakhand in India. But yes, my parents always coming from a very nice, humble family. They always, uh, made us remain true to our roots and always be connected to our culture and also, different aspect of life in Uttarakhand. But I've been born and brought up in Delhi. And like any other child in India, the life was very normal, like going to the school, then college, and just if it will interest the listeners, I did my bachelor's in. Uh, I always interested in science and did my bachelor's in zoology honors
Hmm.
from Khalsa College. And then, for some reasons, because I was interested in medicals, but then for some reasons I moved to language. So if you hear my entire journey, you will find me very confusing. And I would agree with that. Then I moved to, because of some reasons, I moved to languages, and I did my master's in German literature from Delhi University, and also MPhil in German literature from JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. And then while I was doing it, one day I would say I was very lucky to have a roommate, not exactly roommate, a friend of my roommate. She was a Tibetan girl, Sering Chungda, a very exceptionally kind person, uh, also known as Yangchen. And when she was just, a very good friend to my roommate. And then it so happened that one day I asked her, on Sundays she used to go somewhere. So one day I asked her, where are you going? So where do you go? So she said, I go for the philosophy classes. So I said, so I was free that day. So I said, is it okay that I go there? Come with you? She said, yeah, why not? And then it so happened that I attended some lectures at uh, Delhi Tibet House. Delhi Tibet House, the cultural center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that was my first systematic exposure to Buddha's teaching during my MPhil time. And then I distinctly recall the director and the great teacher, Venerable Keshe Dorji Damdula, was teaching the Mool Madhyamika Karika, the fundamental wisdom of the middle way, a seminal text by renowned Nalanda master R.N. Nagarjuna. And the focus of the text is about wisdom of emptiness and the concept that all beings and phenomena lack intrinsic nature and they exist merely through dependent origination. And this concept really captivated me, that and finally also, if we can say the two pillars of Prince Siddharth entire journey and what he discovered and what he taught through 84,000 sutras in after his attaining enlightenment in Bodh Gaya under the Bodhi tree. The two pillars or two foundations, if we can call, is one is the insight into the reality, which is wisdom of emptiness, in Sanskrit known as Shunyata, and the dependent origination, which is the Pratiti Samutpad. This is the wisdom aspect. And on other side, the universal love and compassion. So what actually moved the entire journey of this Prince Siddharth is the universal love and compassion, which made him discover the reality to eliminate the ignorance which is at the root of all the anxieties, pain, and suffering of the sentient beings. So these two, wisdom of Pratitya Samutpad or wisdom of dependent origination, in Pali it's known as Paticca Samutpad, and then the universal love and compassion, the most beautiful form of that in Sanskrit known as Bodhicit. These two, when I heard this from Venerable Geshe-la's lecture, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdula's lecture, particularly on the basis of Mool Madhyamika Karika by Arya Nagarjuna, the 2nd century AD Nalanda master, so that really blew my mind, and then I really felt that, okay, as I said, my life was very ordinary in terms of, going to school, college, and always doing good. It's not that I was a bad student, always doing, excelling in whatever I do, at least academically. But never I felt the, what do you call it, the joy of learning, that was missing. Means, of course, there is always, like, marks are coming, performing well in subjects, and also, loved by teachers all the time, loved by parents. Never ever I still don't recall my parents telling me to study. They were telling me to, do something else, so always that kind of student and child. But, and always, not never felt that, okay, I'm lacking somewhere in terms of, what we conventionally call success. But never ever I felt that feeling of joy in the sense that, okay, looking forward to learning, that was missing. And then when I came to this kind of lectures, particularly on that, what is the meaning, as you were asking, that what is the meaning of our life, right? And then finally, how learning helps us to remove our anxieties, pains, and also help others. That, I think, that questions were not answered, and also I never felt the joy of learning, so which I felt when I attended these lectures, and particularly the concept of emptiness, that how we are interdependent, and how, it depends on many factors to, even to decide what is the meaning of life. So that made my journey. And then I still, if I may share that, after listening to the lecture, I was so mesmerized, particularly with the concept of emptiness and dependent origination. And I asked, and my friend came to me and said that, would you, after the lecture, she said, would you like to come for our other lectures? Because that was like a regular weekly lectures happening at Tibet House, New Delhi. And then I said yes. And then I was so immature, and I would say the audacity to say these words, which I will never say now. So I said, yes, I will definitely come, provided, Geshe-la answers my one question. And she said, yes, why don't you go to him? And I, after everybody, had interaction with him, I took the opportunity to go to him and request him for one question. I said, Venerable Geshe-la, what you talked about emptiness, and then, how insight into emptiness can really remove all your fears. That was the main crux of the lecture, that how insight into emptiness can help us eliminate all the fears of life, anxieties, stress of life, right? In other words, technically known as nirvana, what we call nirvana, right? Where you have complete cessation of suffering and fears, particularly. And then I went to him and I said, but it's very nice, and emptiness sounds so amazing, right? But don't you think that, if I attain this state of cessation of suffering or cessation of fear, but still my parents are suffering, other people are suffering, won't that be a even more miserable state to be in, seeing that I'm happy but others are still suffering? And then he smiled at me and he gave a very beautiful example. He said that, he asked me, he said, who can best help a patient, a doctor or another patient? And then he smiled and he said, and then I said, a doctor. So then and then I got my answer, actually. Then I got my answer. So his very clear and compassionate response inspired me to embark on this unique journey of systematic study, reflection, and meditation on the Buddha's teaching, particularly to learn, at least to learn what this great enlightened being who was moved by the great compassion to benefit sentient beings has taught. And then under his guidance and with the support of my university supervisors, then I did a PhD studying Buddhism systematically. I did a PhD focused on Are Nagarjuna's philosophy of emptiness and what are the different views and how it has, it has very, very transformative effects and psychological implication from Delhi University. And now I have the privilege to teach these wonderful teachings at Nalanda University here.
And I've read some of your work, actually, looking at this, including a work on your PhD thesis. I looked at a little bit, which was sitting in this wonderful monk, Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah, or we say La, who is very close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's one of the most important figures in all of Buddhism, but certainly of Tibetan Buddhism, one of the heads of there's a few schools, and there's so much to your even what you shared in your story that I want to kind of follow up on. And I'll immediately start by asking you about this, what you say, the wisdom of emptiness, the understanding and realization of emptiness as a way to resolve all of our fears and our anxieties and so on. So I just want to start with that. But before I do, you mentioned a couple terms that I just want everybody to know. So like Nalanda is the name of the old Buddhist tradition, and it's also the name of an old, incredibly ancient and important Buddhist university that has now been recreated recently in a new form. What we can discuss that for sure later. And Uttarakhand, the area of India you're from, is a very mountainous Himalayan area, which has, I believe, quite a few monasteries as well as temples. And it's very quiet, very beautiful, very forested, and it's a very peaceful area. And Prince Siddharth, who you mentioned, is actually the name name of the original Buddha, Gautama Buddha. So just so everybody knows these points, and so I want to just now go back to this question. It's incredible what you just shared to me, actually, because in my own life, I basically never really felt much joy before until I began this particular set of practices. And so we're really zeroing in on this joy and of learning, joy of being in the present moment, and how can an understanding of what you call emptiness, or Buddha himself calls emptiness, how can that resolve these challenges and anxieties and fears? So what do we mean by emptiness? Let's just start with that. Like, what is that for a lay person?
As we know now, emptiness, emptiness or shunyata in Sanskrit, and in Pali the word is sunnata, and particularly in shunyata, and of course taught by Buddha Shakyamuni. And this is the concept which is very, very close to my heart. In fact, I would say it really transformed my life. And as you mentioned, the joy of learning came from this concept, I would say. Because earlier, as I said, I was doing everything fine, but never ever felt that, okay, you can enjoy the process of learning also. So that I really empathize with my students also. And I keep telling them that, if you can, unlock this key of feeling joy at even learning, while learning, you feel joyous. The life become very beautiful and meaningful. Otherwise, it's like although you may be very successful conventionally, people are praising you, you have, millions of followers, on Instagram, and everybody is like, looking up to you as an icon or as an idol. But if you cannot unlock this thing that, okay, whatever you do, there is a joy in that. If you can do that, if you can unlock, or if you can get that key, then it's a very beautiful journey. Otherwise, it becomes like a struggle,
Yeah.
although we call it a very successful journey. But if you ask the individual, it is like a struggle. It's like a struggle in its own way. It can be a very subtle form of struggle, but it is in a struggle. So this wisdom of emptiness, and particularly, as I said, driven by the force of the interconnectedness, the universal love on the basis of the rationality of interconnectedness. then that can help us unlock this, real, what you call it, the magic of feeling joy even during your journey. And of course, then the result is very meaningful.
So there's a joy that you begin to experience in your life tied to learning, and that everybody can try to identify what is it that brings them that joy of growth, that joy of expansion. But there are other things that bring people what they perceive of as joy, but it's actually more like like dissociation. So I guess I just want to ask you again, like, what we mean by emptiness and how do we cultivate that joy?
So basically, as I said, emptiness. So that was what I shared as journey was the beginning. Then it takes time, right? Emptiness is a profound concept. It's not difficult, but it is profound. It is profound to the extent that when Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, uh, in here in Bodh Gaya, very close to where I am, just 2 hours away from here, under the Bodhi tree, when he got enlightenment, he remained silent for 49 days. And then, at the request of the celestial beings and the other people, then the first wordings of the Buddha, what he uttered were profound, peaceful, elaboration free, clear light and non-composite. Such is the nectar-like dharma I have discovered. Finding no one to fathom this teaching, in silence I will retire into the woods. So he was talking about the emptiness. So Buddha very clearly mentioned that the dharma of the emptiness that I have discovered is very profound, is extremely peaceful. But because it is profound, it expects you to devote some time. So this is the disclaimer that I'm giving, that although I will share the very simple understanding of emptiness, but this is worth giving time. In fact, that when my journey started, after that I did a Nalanda master's course, an extraordinary 6-year course inspired by the far-reaching vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and that the curriculum is designed on the basis of ancient Nalanda University, which is still thriving in Tibetan monastic universities. In South India, we have Sera, Gandhin, and Drepung. And the curriculum is all around how to get this wisdom of emptiness and universal love and compassion based on the ancient Nalanda wisdom. So I studied this concept very systematically from the Buddha's teaching and the Nalanda master's text. So what is emptiness, right? Emptiness, English translation, but in Sanskrit is shunyata. So before, I tell my students also that before you talk about the emptiness, we have to talk about the misconceptions related to emptiness, because the misconceptions are so many that the real meaning gets lost. So when we say emptiness, it doesn't mean literally empty, right? It means you are negating something, right? When you say, let's say for example, everybody is empty, or you are empty. Buddha said, for example, the third seal of the Buddha's teaching is all phenomena are of the nature of emptiness. Let me repeat it. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness. So what do you mean by emptiness here? He did not say all phenomena do not exist. That is the clear indication of lack of understanding of emptiness. And Arya Nagarjuna clarifies this in his text Mool Madhyamika Karika, that those people who understand emptiness to means nothingness, they have not understood the real intent of Buddha. So what is this emptiness? So emptiness means empty of something, right? And what is this? Empty of independent nature, empty of intrinsic nature, empty of objective nature, right? Empty of objective existence. So while things exist, but they do not exist the way they appear to us. So if I simply ask you, when you look at me or you look at the screen, how does this appear to us? It appears as so independent, right? It appears as so objectively real from its own side, and not depending on other causes and condition, not depending on your mind also. So that is the mistake, that is the ignorance that creates issues, that creates the sense of false independence, which make us go into the inappropriate attention of exaggerating the things which we like, and undermining or exaggerating the negative things also we dislike. On that basis, all the afflictions, all the destructive emotions such as attachment, jealousy, hatred, anxiety, fear, all they come into being, and then which make us in turn do all the negative actions to protect ourselves, and the false perception that is created by the independent nature and objective nature, which in turn creates the suffering which we call anxiety and stress, right? So in a way there is a chain of action and reaction coming from this fundamental ignorance that things exist independent of many causes and condition. One of them is your own mind, right? So then they clearly discovered and taught it compassionately to all sentient beings that things do exist, but they do not exist the way they appear to us as so solidified, independent, and objectively real. So then how do they exist? They exist by dependence, through dependent origination. And then on this dependence level, he taught various levels of dependent origination. One is the cause and effect. That, okay, for example, you put apple seed, only apple tree will come, right? Never the banana tree will come. So this is
Right.
cause and effect. So this is outside dependent origination. And the inside dependent origination is, for example, depending on the anger, never peace of mind will come. Only the disturbance will be there, and which will make you do many negative things. So this is the internal dependent origination. By dependence on ignorance, only suffering will arise. So this is cause and effect. This is mere cause and effect of dependent origination. Another subtler level of dependent origination, which complements the emptiness understanding. So this and the emptiness, these are like the two sides of the same coin, is the understanding the dependent origination of dependence on mental imputation. That how things exist by dependence on mental imputation. And therefore they are empty of objective existence. For example, let's say if I have a mobile in my hand, there are only two possibilities for this mobile to exist. Either it should exist from its own side objectively, or it should exist by the power of subjective imputation. So then Buddha discovered that, okay, although things appear to exist from its own side objectively, but they are empty of objective existence. They exist by dependence of mental imputation. And then this verse comes, which is very beautiful. And I think even just reflecting on this, first we have to learn the meaning, and then reflect on this on a daily basis can help us remove our fears in a real sense, in a very, not just superficial, but uprooting the anxiety from the root. So what Buddha said in Samadhi Raja Sutra, it says, just as in the dream of a young girl, she met with a boy. Joyous was she at the meeting, and in despair over his death, view all phenomena as thus. So Buddha gave a very beautiful example that how we suffer in dream. So in dream, every day we have the experience of dream. In the dream, let's say a very beautiful young girl, she meets with a young boy, right? And then when they meet, initially is so much of excitement, right? So much of excitement, and then going out, and then even sharing life experiences, and they enjoy their life. And then it so happens that the boy starts to vomit, or boy starts to have some health issues, and then he dies, right? And then this girl, she feels tremendous pain, anxiety, fear, and loneliness, all these negative emotions, right? And then next moment, her mother wakes her up. Okay, now time to go to school, right? So now what she saw in the dream, the initial excitement, joy, happiness, and the later part of the dream, the fear, anxieties, what is one thing common there is lack of the awareness that everything of the dream was not there from the object, but purely from the mental imputation. And when she woke up from this ignorance, sleep of ignorance, then she realized the reality, and she transcended both the thing which pulled her in the beginning and then which pushed her later part of the dream. So that happens only when you awaken from the sleep of ignorance. And therefore the Buddha, the Sanskrit term Buddh, it's actually literally means awakened one. Why awakened? Someone who has awakened from the sleep of ignorance, not the sleep, everyday sleep of ignorance, who has discovered the true nature of reality, which is shunyata and dependent origination, and which made the person to transcend all the afflictions, all the involuntary pull and push. Like for example, first part of the dream, the girl was being involuntarily pulled. It's not
Right.
voluntary. If you say voluntary, then you remove the boy, you should be happy. But when you remove the boy, the girl feels pain. The clear indication it was a pull, not voluntary going to the boy, right? And the later part of the dream, she's involuntarily pushed by the experience of the death of the boy, right? Because she could not bear it and she's howling there in the dream. So only when she discovered the reality that how that experiences come into existence by dependence on many factors, and the second level of dependent origination, which is the mental imputation, she found the true solace and peace of mind. So the dependent origination is the rich understanding that should come to us if you understand emptiness, in its correct form. So to keep
Mm.
it very short for today.
Sure. So emptiness is really this insight or this realization, if we have it, allows us to recognize that nothing really exists in and of itself. And all that exists in relation to other causes, other factors, other conditions, including what you called mental imputations, if I'm not mistaken, which is really our perceptions. So whether it's a dream state or whether we're in another sort of state that is emotionally quite strong, we're always being affected by these states. And so I guess if we can recognize in the moment that our perceptions and experiences are really not in and of themselves, they're tied to so many factors, including our own perception, how can that understanding or awareness be practiced so we really remember it in our mind and our body? Like, are there techniques, like, for example, that maybe you share with your students or others that can help us remember this in the moment? And what can we do? Like, what are ways to kind of cultivate this so it's not conceptual and philosophical, but practical and embodied?
Again, thank you for this question. This is very important and practical question. And then finally, this is the meaning of this shunyata, or pratitya samutpad. If there is no implication, there is no need, right? We have so many things to learn in the world. Why to have one more subject? I'll be very open, I'll be very honest, right? In fact, my approach from the beginning, it was like, what is the benefit of it, right? How insight into shunyata or emptiness and dependent origination benefits an individual, and not only an individual, the collective benefit. What is the benefit of it, right? And that is finally whatever, even a single word, in his lifetime, Buddha taught 84,000 sutras, means direct words of the Buddhas. 84,000 are there, different text. And then the entire purpose of each and every word of Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching is that it should help us elevate suffering. It should help us remove our suffering, which we dislike, and enhance our happiness, which we all like. And when it comes to this experience, there is no difference between rich, poor, girl, boys, young, old, even animals. They want the same thing. They don't want to suffer and they want happiness. So how insight into interdependence, how insight into emptiness can benefit us? So this is the crux. So here again, as I mentioned, first is even conceptual understanding. We need that. Without the, for example, I would, sometimes people, I feel that this should also be promoted, that sometimes we want quick results, shortcuts, right? That, okay, if we really see, as you said, we are a psychophysical aggregate, right? What we say, I, it's not just body. We are the psychophysical aggregates. We have mind and we have body, right? And because we have two things, we have to take care of two things. If we all the time just take care of one aspect, the other aspect will create problem. And this is what is happening in today's time. If I meet with my, if I meet many of my students, and I have the privilege to even, as a coordinator for girls hostel, I have the privilege to counsel, many of the students at Nalanda University. And when I hear their stories, they come from a good family background, and they have joined, if they have joined this international university, it means they are doing good in their studies also. It's not easy to join, you need a minimum essential qualification. So they are doing in their education also good, come from a good family, means even money wise no problem. Then where are we lacking? So as I said, as you mentioned, we are psychophysical aggregates. But if we really examine what we do during a day, from since morning, waking up, then brushing our teeth, taking breakfast, going out for jobs or colleges, and then with the aim to get a good job or having a good job, working hard for 8 hours, and then coming back, then, taking tea or whatever, and then, just engaging in if we really see, it's all driven by the wish to comfort this body. Money for what? So that we have a good house, good car, good, good facilities. It's all for the body. So if we really scan our life, even one day, 24 hours, 99% of our time is just devoted to one aggregate, which is the physical aggregate of our being. And then we are, in a way, we are ignoring, not willingly or not intentionally, we are not trained to take care of this, the mind, right? And then and to be very honest, as Buddha very clearly mentioned in Dhammapada, the profound teaching of collections of the Buddha's teaching, Buddha very clearly said, mind is the chief and precedes all our action. If with impure mind one acts or speaks, miseries follows like a cart following the ox. And mind is chief, precedes them all. If with impure mind one acts or speaks, then with pure mind one acts or speaks, then the happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves. So Buddha emphasized mind so much that finally mind is of greatest importance. In fact, physically, you feel healthy or not, it depends on your mind, because these are interdependent phenomena, even mind and body. And then we know that, okay, for example, the world is celebrating, but if your mind is unhappy, you are unhappy. Even if you have all the physical and the financial facilities, everybody is loving you, no problem physically, but still if your mind is depressed, the whole thing is meaningless for you. So therefore mind plays a very important role to our happiness. So therefore it's our responsibility to take out time to take care of this mind. So this mind, there are two things. Mind is a subject, right? And it always has an object. So now our responsibility is to take care of two things, to go deeper into the understanding of this mind which engages and its object which is engaged. Let me repeat it. That mind of ours which engages and the object with which it engages. So both should be devoted time to. So to understand this mind, we call it psychology, right? Psychology. And the Buddha and the Nalanda masters, they wrote so many texts on understanding the nature of this mind, which we call Buddhist psychology, right? And then to know the reality of this object in its most refined form is known as ontology. Ontology, which is know the subtler realities, not the gross realities which we see, the subtler reality of the object, which is the interdependent nature, emptiness nature, impermanence nature. So we need to work on both, know the nature of the mind, to devote time to understand our own mind, how our mind functions, like, and what are the different functions of the mind, like mindfulness, then compassion, then anger, then anxiety. These are all the functions of our brilliant mind, vibrant mind. Our mind has the capacity to function in different ways. The more you know its function, like how it has the power of tolerance, contentment. Some people are so self-disciplined, some are so lazy, some are so inactive, some are so active, some are so altruistic, some are so selfish. But these are the beautiful functions of our mind. So take out some time to know this mind, and then know the object of this mind also, which is not the grosser reality, which we already know, but the subtler realities like emptiness, interdependence, and the impermanence nature, and many other realities. So this is the complete package of Buddha's teaching. And then the Nalanda master's texts, particularly like like for example, Arya Nagarjuna's Mool Madhyamika Karika, Bodhisattva Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, then Acharya Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatar, and then great masters like Acharya Vasubandhu and Arya Sangha, they wrote about the map of mind, Abhidharma Kosh and Abhidharma Samuchaya. I would highly recommend to take out some time to get insight into this wisdom, not for the sake of knowing Buddhism, for the sake of your knowing your own psychophysical aggregates in their most refined form.
Mm.
After knowing that, then, as you said, know some techniques to apply in daily life, right? How to, once you know the concept well, then what is, when we say meditation, right? Bhavana, it's not just sitting idly, so what Buddha taught, very revolutionary, that meditation does not mean just only sitting down and then thinking of one object. That is one form of meditation. So Buddha taught meditation is of two types. One is known as shamat, and vipassana, right? And a single pointed meditation and analytical meditation, and we need both.
So, just to make sure I understand, so that our listeners can understand, and please just correct me. So, we are so focused in our lives on our body, on our actions. I got to make this money. I got to get this car. I got to get this many followers. I got to, get this podcast out to everybody. I, there's just no end to it, right? Or even the ones where I got to be stronger. I got to take care of my body. I got to this thing. And these are all forms that can be both in terms of delusion or even care for the body. But the mind is sort of the driver, or at least they drive one another. Please tell me if I'm mistaken. And the mind, and understanding the mind in a subtle way, that's a key thing I think you were saying there that I just want to emphasize, rather than a gross or solidified way. So what a solidified way is, that person I was in a relationship left me for another person, and they violated me, and they are this, that, and the other, and I can judge them and put them in that box, and I can put the other in the box, rather than a subtler approach, perhaps to that situation, or more generally, would be to recognize there's a multiplicity of factors that are occurring at any moment, and so much of this is based on our perception as well. So to me, the gross of the mind is I'm angry, or I'm just full of sort of passion, but in a way that where I'm not sort of even aware of my passion. But the subtler points can come by first understanding these concepts, which I want to just repeat in a moment, but then practicing looking at your own mind. And that I want to get, and I feel like that is what meditation is, and where we can go in a moment. Am I getting this correctly, Venerable Dabral?
I fully agree with you. As you said, I would say that to understand the agency that we have, the driver that we have, which is our own mind in its complete form. And this itself expands our, the narrow approach. Most of the time, as you said, we suffer because of more I all the time, right? Oh, why did this happen to me? Why I'm not getting more follower? Why that person doesn't like me? So it's always me, not having a complete picture of the reality, even the outside reality. So in the same way, this mind right now, although this is our mind, when we say my mind, right, it should be I who should be driving it. But
Yeah.
right now it's the opposite way. The mind drives you. And this mind full of, first of all, incomplete understanding of itself, right? And then just working on one aspect, right? One aspect, okay, how I look at the world, right? How I look at the world. And that is also not complete. Very narrow understanding of the world, narrow understanding of the world of emotions, our own emotions, forget about others, and from that very narrow lens, we start to judge others also.
Yeah.
So that creates all the issues. So the more you, sometimes people say, why so much of study? It's not for the sake of study. The more you understand, right? The more you understand your own emotion, more you can empathize better.
Yes.
The more you understand that, okay, in these particular, when the trigger is there, my mind has the potential to perform anger, function of anger. And then when this is the trigger, the jealousy can come in. So then when you know that it happens to me by dependence of certain cause and condition, you can empathize better with others also, that they are also humans, right? They are also full of negative emotions. So as long as you do not work on your mind, we are bound to behave in this unruly way. So
So just to interject, so it's about an investigation of the mind. When does the mind do this? When does the mind do that? What about these are there more subtle experiences? You even mentioned impermanence, where I just invite every listener and viewer of this podcast to just sit and just observe, this part of their lip or their breath for 5 minutes and notice how many things change in 5 minutes or even 30 seconds or 5 hours, right? And so you notice these things through your experiential awareness rather than merely conceptual. You notice that everything is interconnected, right? Like, I can perceive this person as, my friend, but they have other friends, they have other relations. Our experiences are all very dynamic and interconnected and very complex in ways that were unknown to us. Everything changes, it's impermanent, and then nothing exists solely all on its own or it's empty. I apologize for the interjecting there. So please take us to the next step then. What are simple practices, nothing simple, I know, which we can, so it's not, and it's not like, I don't mean this, I mean this because we're in this world where it's like iPhoto, iPhone, iTunes, I this, I that, YouTube. What about us? What about chains of life and beings, right? So how do we start to practice this simply, slowly, patiently to start actually becoming investigators of our own mind?
So as I said, thank you for this question. So as I said, meditation first we have to know, even to practice, we have to know the complete practice, right? So for example, one is the single pointedness, building your single pointedness, attention span, building your focus. This is known as just single pointed concentration, ekagrachit. And the other one is known as analytical meditation, sharpening your intelligence to see the deeper realities. That is vipassana. The mainstream Nalanda tradition, that is analytical meditation, not the popular vipassana I'm saying, which is very, very beneficial. But in the mainstream Nalanda tradition, what is vipassana is the analytical insight. Like, what is impermanence? So you need to analyze things, right? It will not just you see the table and impermanence will come to you. No, you have to see that, okay, how table appears as so solidified to me, but if I have a subtler vision, which is the microscopic vision, every atom or particle of the table is in constant flux. Nothing is so static, which gives the falsity of the permanence, right? Likewise our body, likewise our emotions, although they make us suffer, but where are they, right? Where are they when you actually investigate into them? They're momentarily changing, right? And even 1 hour has 60 minutes, 60 segments. 60, each minute has further 60 segments. If you keep going like this, each moment you cannot locate the present moment, right? You will see the series of moments which are so tiny, and each tiny moment again dissolves into present, to beginning, middle and end. So you cannot even locate the present moment. So you see even the emptiness of the present moment, right? And then the emotion which haunted you, that I am suffering, right? I am depressed, or I am under this, fear. Where is that? Right? So that analytical insight into the empty nature of your own mind, that is extremely powerful meditation. That is vipassana, that is analytical insight. Whereas on the single pointedness, creating the mindfulness, or creating not just the mindfulness, this creating the single pointedness, like for example through the breath, observing just the breath, on a daily basis. Breath, why Buddha took breath as the, one of the many objects of the meditation, is because breath is something which is subtler than the gross body, right? Which is subtler than the gross body, and it is grosser than the mind. Because if you start meditating on mind, first of all, we don't have the clue of mind. You can't even find your mind, right? Because we don't pay attention to it. So you are lost in the, first of all, no object. And then if you meditate on body, that's very gross, right? Very gross experience. So therefore, something in between is the breath, that we all have the experience which is subtler than your gross body and grosser than the experience of the mind, which is so difficult to catch in the beginning. So therefore, breath, which we all have experienced, just observing 21 cycles of the breath on a daily basis. Before you go out, just in the morning, you take out time, just sit, nicely. Even there is a meditative posture that we should know, and nothing to do with religion. It's a healthy way of sitting, right? In fact, in the offices also, we should sit like that, in a proper position of what you call 7 features of meditation. Then you just focusing on a white dot and then counting your 21 cycles of breath. Even that is so beneficial. So this will create the focus. Whatever you do, you will do with complete focus. Then on the other side, we have to, so this will make your mind very focused. This will not expand your mind. In fact, sometimes focused mind can, if you are very narrow in thinking, the focus of the narrowness will be very enhanced, right? So we have to work on all the aspects of the mind, not only focus of the mind, expand the mind to release this narrowness, which creates the problem. Like small thing happens, somebody says, okay, you are looking very bad today. That destroys your day. So many meaningful things you could do in a day that has been destroyed. So this is a clear indication that our approach is very narrow. So expand your mind. So there the meditation or 4 immeasurables: cultivating loving kindness, compassion, then joy, equanimity will make sense, right? Just simple wordings. Even to say these wordings while sitting, you say that may all sentient beings be freed of suffering and cause of suffering. This is compassion. Then may all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and causes of happiness. This is loving kindness, maitri, right? So even saying this before you step out, this will, I don't know if others are benefited or not. Be very practical, right? You saying something may not change the world. Otherwise, by now, world should have become heaven. So many enlightened beings have come and taught, right? But one person who will be benefited is you. Your mind will be expanded. When your mind expands, it's like you being with the people who love you so much. So you feel so relaxed with your family member, your friends, some particular friends. Why? Because you know that they are not going to judge you. Your mind just relaxes, right? So when you do this meditation on 4 immeasurable, cultivating loving kindness, just simple wordings, may all sentient beings be freed of suffering and causes of suffering, right? On the understanding of share humanity, that okay, we all want happiness and no one wants suffering, right? So then it expands our mind, and this will release our narrowness in approach, and this will really benefit. That what is the mark of success of it? Later on, when something very small happens, you are very stupid, it will not affect you, right? Earlier it will not affect you. Now this is the expanding the mind. Now how to make your mind very profound in engaging, right? That the gross realities or the things which are, like for example, difficult times, challenges, right, where you lose your near and dear ones, where you have to be disconnected who you really love, who you like, and person stops loving you, but you still maintain your sanity. Where this wit insight will help us, there you have to go into this is known as building the profundity of the understanding, profoundness of the mind. For this you have to go into the subtler understanding or subtler realities, like knowing the impermanent nature of all composite things, how all composite things are in constant flux. None of them is in the static state the way they appear, number 1. Number 2, the relative nature of the phenomena, how things exist in relative sense, right? Good, bad, all relative. Like for example, how much is good? How much salary is good? Okay, $10,000 or $50,000, right? How much following is good? 5 millions or 10 millions? If you say 5 million, ask the Hollywood superstar, they will say, oh, it's nothing, right? It will pain them. Only 5 million? It's such a shame, right? For us, it's good. Even 5 million is so good. So is 5 million is the real happiness? Or even that exists in relative terms. So the wisdom of relativity, extremely precious concept, right? That, okay, how even fashion, right? It's all relative, right? Good, bad is all relative, right? loneliness and inclusivity is all relative. I'm very fascinated with some people. By themselves they feel freedom, privacy, and when with their others they feel that okay, this is the time for me to have a shared experience. Whereas some people, when they are with by themselves, they feel lonely. When they are with others, they feel, oh, I have no privacies. So you have no peace of mind anywhere, right? So there the relativity, knowing even loneliness and the sharing, it all relative, right? And then finally getting into the insight into, and all this will be helped through understanding the emptiness of objective existence and how things exist only through interdependence by the complexity of the cause and effect, and finally your mind playing a major role in perception of the world and existence of phenomena, which quantum
Got it.
physics is also teaching these days.
There's so much here, and I want to break this down as well. So this is very powerful. So there are three types of meditations we all can engage in immediately, every single person here. One, to just sort of ground yourself and focus and hone in your concentration. This is what you described. Please correct me if I'm wrong, as a vipassana meditation. Um, Many people know of these vipassana camps that exist around the world. So I would be curious to talk with you about that and other resources people can engage with. And as well as we will link to some of the texts, important texts and teachings you mentioned from many centuries ago in some cases. So that's one type of meditation. Like you're going into a meeting, you want to be really present with someone. You're going into a class and you really want to like get what you can out of it. You're going to teach a class like me. I did about 50 breaths before I got on Zoom this today so I could be present here and focus on listening to you as deeply as possible. That's one type. And that helps kind of hone, it seems like sharpen the mind's ability to be present, to learn, to dive in, to, in a sense, I don't know if the word is excel, but to achieve. But then there's the other thing, right? Which is the big existential feeling, that feeling of loneliness, that feeling of isolation, that feeling like it's all about me, even if I don't mean that in a narcissistic way. Like, why have all these things happened to me? Like a feeling of self-pity. And you can cultivate that by recognizing, well, okay, so there's a couple things. You can expand the mind so it's not just honed in and focused. So you start living and being in states that are kinder to others, that are more compassionate, that wish others well, that feel joy, and also feel that and develop the capacity to let go, right? Upeksha. So these are what you call the four immeasurables. And there are many practices, and we'll ask you for some resources where people can start to learn these practices. So these are complementing one another. One set of practices to hone focus, attention, and presence. The other to hone and generate expansiveness. I wanted to share with you in my own life, as I've said before, I practice both of these daily, and I'm a much, much more peaceful and joyful person. I'm just like joyful to be speaking with you and learning from you. I'm joyful that after this, I get to spend time with my parents, but I'm not also letting my mind fly to there because I'm trying to cultivate, the 21 breath Vipassana version. And then the last thing you said, I just wanted to break that down, is very, very important, because then and I want to ask you about this specifically, and this question of how to overcome loneliness and isolation, which is that you can get into a deeper sense of meditation of awareness that's not just breath in, breath out, but just sort of being and observing. And through that being and observing, you start to recognize that everything is kind of relative, that that everything is kind of impermanent, that it changes. I mean, just look out the window or just sit outside somewhere for X number of minutes and notice how all your sensory perceptions change. I want to ask every listener, just sit and be, and just observe when your mind starts racing, and then just bringing it back to the awareness. So the last point you made, which I feel is very important, is that there's these subtle and critical forms of awareness can come by just by sort of more deeply engaging in a meditation. So please correct me and please clarify.
So the last part, as you said, so the first part, which I mentioned, as I said, the mind, the same mind, right? It's the same mind. it has to be trained from all the aspects, not just one aspect. One aspect is single pointedness, focus, as you very brightly, beautifully put it. And then object can be any. You can meditate on breath, you can meditate on single dot below your nose, you can meditate on any object, like visualizing a flower, visualizing an enlightened being, or visualizing anybody, a source of inspiration for you, your own tradition, anybody, and then building this focus, all the, on a daily basis, building this focus through daily exercise. This will make your mind like a laser beam. Whatever you do, you will excel. Quality of the if you want quality of your professional life, personal life, that what you do is not, the quality is not hampered by the distractions, right? Why quality is hampered? Because when you're distracted, like for example, in 24, let's say in 60 moments, all 60 moments are on the same object, whereas out of the 60, 30 has gone here and there, laundry, my job, other job, that person says stupid, right? So it is, in a way, half of yours, out of the 60 moments, 30 moments have gone somewhere else, which makes the quality to go down. So what is the key to have the quality to anything? That is single pointed meditation. So in the popular Vipassana, it is called Vipassana, but the mainstream Nalanda tradition, it is called Shamatha. This I would like to clarify. Whichever label you give, but this is very important aspect of the mind, right? Shamatha meditation. So that should be built on a daily basis. But at the same time, if you're a logical person, you should know that some people, they are extremely focused and they are suffering a lot. Why? Because the pain, they focus very like a laser beam, right? So therefore, the mind, focused mind, but this mind should get a good object, not the pain as the object, but the joy as the object. So this object has to be cultivated. So there where the other meditation, Vipassana, comes into being, where, as you very rightly mentioned, the 4 Brahma Viharas or 4 immeasurable, like cultivating loving kindness, compassion, then equanimity, and then joy. Joy is very beautiful. Joy is what? Not simple joy. Is the joy you feel. It's called rejoicing. It's like when somebody is happy, you're not sad, you're not unhappy, you also become happy. So Bodhisattva Shantideva puts it so beautifully that it's like a free happiness, right? It's like a free happiness. Other happinesses where you get an award, you have to do a lot of effort, right? You have to excel in whatever you are doing, then only you get an award, then you become happy. But let's say somebody is receiving an award and you are happy, you did nothing, right? But you got free happiness, free joy, right? This is the power of the rejoicing, right? And this is what Buddha said, it helps us accumulate so much of energy and merit over time. That rejoicing, art of rejoicing, this we have to learn. This we are lacking. And if we really see, jealousy does nothing good to us. If I becoming jealous, his award is snatched away, good, do it, right? Nothing will happen. They will not even know your existence, right? But if by rejoicing, the person anyways getting award and excelling, and when you rejoice, your mind also becomes partaker of the happiness. Where you
Absolutely. And if I can just one quick interjection, it's a type of liberating and freeing experience when you practice these 4 what you called immeasurables. In the Buddhist sutras, they're described as Brahma Viharas, which are the divine abodes. And if I could just ask you, and I'm sorry for this interjection, can you say out loud each of the 4 sort of lines or mantras, what we call mantras or prayers? They're not even prayers like praying to God, but just sort of lines to keep in mind and circulate in our mind so we can develop those nectars of the mind, the chitta of the bodhi.
Thank you so much. So this actually comes from the Brahma Vihara Sutta, right? Brahma Vihara Sutta, Metta Sutta. There are so many teachings of the Buddha where Buddha taught about the 4 immeasurables or 4 divine abodes. For a reason, they are called immeasurables, right? Why? Because first of all, what you look at is immeasurable sentient beings, not just one, right? Number 2, the benefit accrued are immeasurable. The benefit accrued from this practice are immeasurable. So therefore, these are called immeasurables, right? Immeasurables, what you look at is immeasurable, and the benefit that you get by cultivating this immeasurable mind, which has no boundary of only my family, only my friend, but just boundless, love and compassion, that benefit you accrue is immeasurable. So these are known as four immeasurables, a praman, or four Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. And why they are called Brahma Vihara, we should know that, okay, it is said that with the practice of four immeasurable, complemented with jhanas, complemented with the single pointed meditation, this has the capability to help you to attain the concentration of the formless realm known as the Brahma state, right? Brahm state. So that is a little technical, but for us, we have to know that single pointedness combined with four immeasurable has immense power to attain a very subtle form of, very subtle level of samadhis also. So now, what are they? In Sanskrit, they are known as mudita, loving kindness, karuna, compassion. Then, okay, let me put it once again in the chronological order. Let's say karuna is compassion, maitri is loving kindness, mudita is joy, and then the upeksha is equanimity. In Pali, if you want, they are known as, again, karuna, metta, mudita, upekha, right? And then how should we say it on a daily basis? Even on a daily basis, before you sleep, or before you step out, you just say, for example, first, immeasurable karuna or immeasurable compassion. May all sentient beings be freed of suffering and causes of suffering. This is immeasurable compassion. Then immeasurable loving kindness. May all sentient beings be happy. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. This is immeasurable loving kindness, maitri. Then immeasurable joy or mudita. May all sentient beings never separate from the causes of happiness that they are endowed with. Never separate. They continue to be with the causes of happiness. This is rejoicing or joy. Then finally, the immeasurable equanimity, or known as upeksha or upekha in Pali. May all sentient beings be freed of biased attitude, of excessive attachment to near and dear ones, and excessive aversions to difficult people or strangers. So this is the equanimity, a balanced state of mind. So these are the four.
And really, the learning to let go is such a huge, huge thing. So we're at this time, Venerable Dabral, where our lives are just more and more being determined and shaped by the invisible rhythms and speed, I would say, of these digital technologies, from social media systems, which I'm sure many of your students are using quite a bit. I know there's no TikTok in India at the moment. We're figuring that out here in the United States. It seems like life is not just sped up because these systems just keep going. They never end, one. But two, many systems that we experience online tend to elevate and privilege information that they are algorithmically predicted to bring into visibility, that are likely to draw very strong emotional states from us, either ones of anger and antagonism, or ones of a sort of dopamine hormonal release, where you're like, oh, she likes me, or oh, I got more clicks, or oh, I got more followers, like this kind of like a casino slot machine thing. And we know with younger people in particular, but in many other groups, younger women, we know this is very positively correlated with depression. We also know that for many people, and there's some interesting studies on this, that people are forgetting history. Like a lot of people don't remember COVID. This was like not long ago. And I'm not trying to judge anyone for this. I'm just trying to understand these conditions. Many people have that feeling, like fear of missing out. We say FOMO. Like everyone's always having a better time than you somehow. And then many also are multitasking. And I'm certainly a culprit with that. And it seems like all of these are forces of dissociation. And many of the practices you're speaking of are about an embodied integrative awareness that is expansive and subtle and focused. So what is going on and what can we do? And, and you are a professor as well. And it's not even about simply saying the youth are in trouble and no one else is like this kind of patronizing stuff. I'm not into that. I think I learned so much from them all the time. We are a sangha, we're a community, our classroom, the way I look at it. So, but these forces are very strong. And the news and media also just tend to privilege spectacles and sensational content. And now we see that also changing political lives. Who gets the most attention in a notorious way often is the most infamous and therefore famous. So it just feels like many people feel like this sort of world is kind of collapsing around us, facilitated by these engines that have dissociative effects. Even the idea that life can be reduced to data and numbers. That's an ontological question, right? It's slightly different than the way you're using the term ontology, but consistent. It's a statement of the expression and articulation of knowing and being, right? So I'm very concerned about these things, but I'm not a lamenter. I am a former engineer, and I'm devoted to these digital technologies supporting all beings. Use the term sentient being, which I'd love for you to clarify so everybody understands that. What do we do about all of this? What can we, from your position, both as a venerable, an ani, a monk, nun, as well as a professor, a very learned person who has a lot of exposure to literature and sciences as well. Can you help us with this?
Thank you so much. So just to clarify the term sentient being, right? Sentient being. In fact, in Tibetan, it has a very beautiful word. It comes from the Sanskrit word sattva, right? And in Tibetan, it's semchen. So it simply means mind possessor. Anyone who possesses a mind is a sentient being. So it includes all beings, like all forms of life, not just human beings, right? Even tiny insects are sentient beings, right? So anyone who possesses a mind, meaning in simple terms, who has a feeling of suffering and happiness. So that person is very important, whoever it is, right? Be it a very tiny insect or be it a Prime Minister of India. When it comes to this, that okay, he possesses mind, meaning he has a or she has a feeling of happiness and suffering. So we should be able to create happiness and destroy the suffering. So that becomes important for anybody, right? So therefore, as I said in the beginning, when it comes to that, we are all same. We are all same, no difference, right? It's just a matter of conventional labeling. We are all same, right? So now, this is very important question. In fact, I being, now I teach at Nalanda University. So as you said, it's not just youngsters, even this digital times, I would say. I'm not against I really support, right? Digital technology, use of AI. Like, for example, I just, we had because it's a Nalanda University. So we always try to revive the ancient Nalanda tradition, which was very rigorous debate tradition, dialectical dialogue tradition. So we have debate clubs. So we just had, one interaction on AI is a boon or bane, right? So these kind of things. So I was always supportive, right? Because this is like, for example, let's say in your kitchen, if you have only one spoon, or if you have spatula also, if you have different kinds of, whipper also, you can make a delicious food, right? So the more the facilities, better you can do. But where is the problem? When they start controlling you. And this does not happen knowingly. This happens unknowingly, right? Your over or excessive use of technology where you lose lack of control, right? You think that you are controlling your time. Like, for example, watching Insta or watching, reels one after the other. So you start with one reel thinking that, okay, I will do, my assignment. And then actually 2 hours are gone and you don't even realize. So this is where now it has started controlling you. So this now what, you so nicely put that, okay, the mind, one is the focus, one is the subtlety, one is the expansion. So all this meditation, all this cultivation, understanding, this will help us to have control, have the remote control in our own hand. Then digital, not because we created it, can never overpower us. But if we do not have this training of having the subtlety, expansive focus of the mind, then the time will come that we will give the remote control to the technology. Then it's quite scary, and it is happening. Actually, it's happening. You can see with the youngsters, you can see with many people, they lose time and they don't have even a clue that this is happening to them, right? In a way, what you call, sometime, I learned this term where the no mobile phobia, right? Something like that. No mobile phobia also, no more something, right? So this
Something
is,
it's like that. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. People
so
have that. They if they don't have feel their phone, people have even phantom limb syndrome, where
yes.
you feel the phone on your body when it's not there. Like you have there it's essentially almost like a limb or a prosthesis.
And then we have to really understand the core of it. See, being on social media is a clear indication that we have an innate wish to connect with people. This
Yeah.
is nobody can deny. Therefore, as His Holiness Dalai Lama puts it very beautifully, we are social being, right? We are social being. We cannot, even religion should not divide us, because if religion divides us, the whole core of the religion is lost, right? So all religion is to support the meaning of life, which is to be happy, knowing that we are social, right? We are social being. We cannot be in isolation, right? And then people say that, okay, I feel very happy in isolation. That also we have to really examine, because the very fact you are on social media, you are interacting through media, or you are interacting with a device, is a clear indication that you have an innate wish to engage, right? To have people around, to love to be listened, to love to be praised, to love to be acknowledged. This is there, nobody can deny. But I also understand and empathize why it is happening now through social media and not through the direct, because in direct, somewhere people were not trained in three aspects of the subtlety of mind, focus of mind, expression of mind. Then you do not know how to control this, right? You do not know how to deal with people when they come to you, and then you do not know how to deal with the realities that you are thrown in, right? For example, somebody loving you and leaving you, then somebody saying you're stupid, not stupid, somebody saying, so then you dissociate, at the same time you want to associate. So it's a very difficult position, right? It's like you're nowhere. Like, you want to be close, but you want to be aware also. So it's a constant struggle on a life. In life, it's a constant struggle. So so this is the problem that we are facing right now. So first we have to know, acknowledge that we want to associate, right? And it gives us lot of benefit, joy, and also it increases three things: focus, it increases subtlety of the mind by knowing the realities, and also it will increase the expansiveness. Naturally it will happen when you engage with people. Now at the same time, people are doing this through social media, through their own accounts. So then it tells us a bigger reality, a deeper reality, that while we want to engage, we don't want to lose control, we want to have the freedom. So how to bring the two things together, where we engage, but at the same time we do not have lack of freedom, we do not have the, in other words, we have all the benefits, but at the same time we do not have negative emotions like anger, jealousy, because these negative emotions only come when we associate with people, right? Like loneliness comes when you associate, only when they leave you, then only, right? So you have a armor that, okay, I will not even talk to you, right? So I will just interact through the social media, so whenever I want I can block you, right? So in a way it tells us a lot about our psychology, that we want to be associated but don't want to lose freedom, don't want to lose control. So is there a way by which we can have both? There is a way, there is a way. So this, where all these three things will come together: building your single pointedness, building expansiveness, building the insight into reality of shunyata and dependent origination and relativity and impermanence. How? Because with the single pointedness, this will just make your focus very clear. Number two, with the expansiveness, all the benefit will come to you, all the joys will come to you. It's like everybody will start loving you, right? Everybody, because people love who are considerate, right? Nobody likes selfish people. They only like selfish people when you are very rich or when you are very powerful, right? When you don't have money and power, they will leave you, right? Because they know
Absolutely.
you're very selfish, right? So this is second thing. With the practice of the expanse universal love and compassion, everything good will come to you by people loving you and you loving the people. This is one. And then what is the second problem? That you don't want to lose control, you don't want to lose your freedom. That's why you are engaging through social media, that okay, I have control. When I want to block, I block, right? So this is where in a way you want that your emotions should not be affected, that you are not affected by any external condition. So there the emotions will affect you only when you don't know the nature of the reality.
Mm.
There the insight into subtler realities like impermanence, then emptiness, then interdependence will work. So right now, although I fully acknowledge with the social media you will have control, but this control is like escapism.
Yes.
It's like you have to run away. So although it's a dissociation, but it's not a freedom. You freedom is wherever you are dissociated. Wherever you are, you have freedom, right? That is the real freedom. So with the insight into reality, even if people not loving you, knowing impermanence, anti-nature, interdependence, this will not affect you. So you can be amongst people, loved by people, loving people. At the same time, people have different emotions. So this will not affect you when they go against or when they go against your wishes, right? So this is the way of bringing two things together, where you have full of happiness, at the same time you're not affected by this. So for this we need both. Full of happiness, you need the expansiveness of the mind, cultivate love and compassion, universal love and compassion, and to have the fearlessness, cultivate insight into realities, which is emptiness and interdependence and impermanence. And then to make it very high quality, have single pointed concentration. All three.
Wonderful. So a certain kind of this instills a certain kind of fearlessness when one enters those worlds where you can see them for what they are, which is we don't really know or understand both on a technological level how these operate, let alone the kind of much more fundamental foundational point that there's impermanence, there's no such thing as kind of sort of self-containment or therefore the idea of emptiness, and everything is interdependent. It could be whether the person doesn't want to look at Instagram today, but they're on there because they're being dragged to because they have no choice. So you get a reaction that's completely different. We just don't know. And there's something very, very liberatory about not knowing, but knowing what is true, which is that these are beyond the sort of narrow idea of the self or the narrow idea of it being self-contained. They're very powerful. So I know we just have, a few more, a couple more quick questions for you, and then we'll wrap up in the next, 10 to 15 minutes or so. But it's very important for me to ask you about the Nalanda University that you teach at, as well as you alluded to it, and we alluded to it earlier, the old Nalanda University. So Nalanda for all of our listeners. But also how the term Nalanda is also used to describe Buddhist history and Buddhist tradition. So can you tell us the story, at least just briefly? We'll try to get everybody to go visit there someday. I have had the very, very big blessing of visiting the old Nalanda University. Tell us about this university where people have engaged in debates, in sort of, you said dialectical discussions. When was this university around? Where is it now? Like, what is its status now? And what about the new Nalanda University? When was that formed? And how did you find yourself there?
Thank you so much. So, Nalanda, right? It's a very beautiful word. Of course, the etymology of the word now, it has so many different meanings, but one etymology which I really like. So, Nalanda, it is described as Na Alam Dadati iti Nalanda, which translates to the place where there is an unceasing flow of gift of knowledge. That is the meaning of Nalanda, one etymological meaning. And then this Nalanda, it was the first residential university of the world, founded at Nalanda by the, Emperor Kumaragupta in around 5th century Common Era. And this, it is said that at one time, at the peak of it, it had 2,000 teachers, acharyas, and 10,000 students. And not from only India, from the different parts of the world. It is believed that Nalanda attracted scholars from China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, all these places. And then when these scholars studied there and then went back, they took this Nalanda legacies in the form of not only just scriptures, but also through the profound daily meditation they used to do. So Nalanda was a blend of study and reflection in a residential setting. So same-minded people, they were exploring the questions that what is the true meaning of our life, how everybody wants happiness and nobody wants suffering. So although the curriculum included what you call Buddhist philosophy, majority, like in the main sense, but there were also other subjects like grammar, medicine, logic, mathematics, astronomy, and the study of philosophical tradition. Very rigorous system to study the existential questions, that what is the true meaning of life, what is the true reality, what do you mean by the emptiness, what do you mean by the interdependence. So very rigorous study of through the dialectical method, not just a monologue, teacher teaching and then students memorizing them. No, a dialectical, like lecture happens and then there is a constant debate around it. Not debate like to fight, but to go deeper into the understanding. And through different traditions and different philosophical systems, they used to get into the very deep and profound understanding of Buddha's teaching, as Buddha himself advised. So Buddha very clearly mentioned, "O bhikshus and wise men, just as the goldsmith tests the purity of the gold by cutting, rubbing and burning the gold, so you should examine my word and put them into practice, and don't accept them simply out of respect for me." So this, following the advice of the Buddha, this Nalanda University has a very rigorous system of logic and debate. Logic and debate means whatever you practice, first you should thoroughly examine it if it is beneficial or not. So your first question, how emptiness is beneficial, right? If there is no benefit, no emotional attachment, right? There should be a benefit to spend time, because when it comes to you are very important. Each individual, each sentient being, whoever possesses this feeling of happiness and suffering, that person is very, very, very important. And then to make this person what they want, happiness and not want suffering, whatever helps you should examine it thoroughly through logic and debate, and then put them into practice. So Nalanda had a very rigorous system of logic and debate and practice. And then who are the great masters who actually contributed a lot is Arya Nagarjuna, the pioneer of emptiness after Buddha Shakyamuni. Then Arya Asanga and Acharya Vasubandhu on the psychology, right? And Acharya Vasubandhu is also known as the second omniscient one. Why? Because his texts are used as the encyclopedia of Buddhism, about cosmology, about selflessness, about emotions, about map of mind, what not he has written. So very important figure in Nalanda. Then Acharya Bhavaveka, Acharya Buddhapalita, Acharya Chandrakirti, then Acharya Bodhisattva Shantideva. Then Bodhisattva Shantideva gave a very beautiful book, A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. This talks about the advanced psychology on how to change your cognitive perception to have happiness. Not through just emotional, okay, we should do it, we should do good things. No. How to transform your cognitive thinking so that you don't have to force yourself to be happy. You will become happy by changing the perception of for example, let's say when you wake up, the fear dissolves. In the dream, the fear is there. So what makes the difference? The cognitive perception has changed. Now you have seen the reality very closely. So that technology and that kind of discussions are there in his text, how to go into the cognitive psychology to transform the mind in a very, very profound and stable way. And then many other subjects were discussed at the Nalanda University, which was a great seat of learning for many, many. And in fact, what we know of Nalanda now, we know that Nalanda was, destroyed, and it was there till 12th century Common Era. But many of the account of the Nalanda is all because of its international students, right? Chinese scholars, Korean scholars, and Tibetan scholars. When they went back, and then when they were here, they wrote the accounts, their travelogues. and then their writings. And from there, we know what Nalanda was, its architectures, its ambience, what was the learning, what was the Panch Mahavidyas at Nalandas. All we know through this great teachers and scholars who studied at Nalanda and then took this Nalanda culture and the teachings of the Buddha when they went back to their countries. So therefore, Buddhism disseminated, through this Nalanda in all different places. So that was the old Nalanda. Now,
It's a just one interjection. It's a spectacular place which still has so much of that energy, and far from it being like ruins or whatever. I spent several hours there. And we will, link to all of these locations so people, if they have the opportunity, can go to Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha obtained enlightenment, it's a powerful, to put it mildly, place of peace and wisdom and insight. And then just 2 hours away from there, where you are, is the site of the old Nalanda University. But just to transition to this, you're a professor at what the relatively new, I think a couple decades maximum, but please clarify, Nalanda University. And I want to just ask you, in relation to what the new Nalanda University is, how can we combine, and whether the university does this, both secular education with some of this spiritual, I guess we could say, or deep insight that are tied to Buddhist teachings? So how are you all trying to do that? Because it feels like in a lot of our educational systems, we teach concepts and analytical thinking and sometimes creative thinking. We don't teach sort of ethical and compassion-oriented thinking, like the four immeasurables, for example, or even the other types of meditation and insight we discussed. So are these being married, and how should they be married? And tell us about the new Nalanda University. Then we have one final question for you.
thank you, Ron. So as you said, that the old Nalanda ruins, now it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's, anybody can visit. And it's a very serene, beautiful place, a constant reminder of how that is the potential of our mind. Right? It's not just now the place, it should be seen as that is the real potential of our mind, to know the mind in its fullest form, and to really answer all the existential question and know the meaning of our life, right? So that was the purpose of Nalanda University, not just a university, just to impart education, but in the real sense, a Mahavihar where the happiness was given in a very, very systematic and very, very logical and secular way to all whoever visited Nalanda in those times. So now that is a place which is, in Rajgir, district is called Nalanda, where you will have this Nalanda and anybody can visit. It's a very beautiful place and also worth visiting once in your lifetime if you're in India. And then very close to, we are just 15 kilometers away from there, just 15 kilometers away, what we call Nalanda International University. So just a brief history. So in March 2006, while addressing a joint session of Bihar State Legislative Assembly, the former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam ji, he proposed the revival of the ancient Nalanda, knowing the profundity of the wisdom that thrived at Nalanda once. And then in 2010, the government of India passed a Nalanda University Act to revive the ancient Nalanda wisdom. Then Nalanda University was established just 15 kilometers away from the old Nalanda ruins. And it has been listed as the Institute of National Importance by the government of India. And then if you happen to be in old Nalanda ruins, very close is new Nalanda, where I teach in the School of Buddhist Studies, Philosophy and Comparative Relation. And the architecture is very beautiful. It is inspired from old Nalanda. And this the architect was a Padma Vibhushan and B.V. Doshiji. And he designed a very eco-friendly architecture reflecting the architecture of the ancient Nalanda, and while integrating all the modern facilities for our students from international countries, like different countries. And also one very important feature of this is like it's a large carbon footprint free net zero campus, and it has many acres of greens and also water bodies. So it's even just appearance wise it's very beautiful, just as the old Nalanda. But I always say that's not the real Nalanda. The real Nalanda is the spirit of Nalanda, which lies in this wisdom of how to train your mind to get happiness, right? So there where old Nalanda is very unique, and the new Nalanda is also trying to revive that tradition. And of course, as any other university, our university has many schools: School of Buddhist Studies, Philosophy and Comparative Religion, School of History, School of Management Studies, School of Environmental and Ecological Studies, International Relations, and then the courses that we offer is mainly on the level of the masters and PhDs, mainly on the level of masters, PhD, and postdoctorate for now. And then we offer also very short-term program. Like, for example, I teach applied Buddhist philosophy online. So, it's a online program. Anybody from the different parts of the world can join, and many international students, they join because if they are busy with the, day-to-day life, their professions, so then they do not have the time to get into the insight of these great Nalanda masters. So what is there for them also? Because to say that we have to study this, we have to know this, we have to practice this is one thing, and we have to create opportunities also. So short-term programs like applied Buddhist philosophy is taught, where you learn what is the foundations of Buddhist philosophy and how to apply this in daily life. So this is one course that I teach. And apart from that, on the campus we have proper master's degrees in Buddhist philosophy. So as you said, the idea is to merge the two things. So as His Holiness the Dalai Lama always emphasizes, that if you really want our youth, because youth is the future of the nation, future of our generations, right? If you're really visionary, if we do not have a narrow approach, we should not think about just ourselves, but what we are leaving for generations to come, right? And then training the youth in a very complete way, where they're happy and also can export happiness. That is the real message of ancient Nalanda, which we are trying to revive. So, for example, different subjects at the same time, the subject like Buddhist philosophy, comparative religion, and study of the different traditions. This is the idea which His Holiness says, that while we educate the brain of our youth, we have to educate their heart also. Means the ethics part of it in a very secular way. So this is the uniqueness of ancient Nalanda, and this we are trying to also revive, where whatever we teach. For example, we have courses like, of course, the courses on mind, philosophy of mind, then the social aspects, the contribution of Nalanda wisdom on social aspects. Then we have the courses on, like particularly my school, the courses on Mool Madhyamika Karika, the wisdom of Shunyata, particular on the Shunyata. Then we have the foundational teachings of the Buddha. Then we map of mind and cognitive psychology. Then we also have about like how to the comparative study of Buddhist studies and other Indian philosophical traditions. So these kind of subjects are there, and also subjects like overview of Buddhist meditation. And then on a daily basis, like guiding the students to how to incorporate whatever we are learning intellectually. And of course, it's an academic system. So we have to be very rigorous in research also. So we train them for research, but at the same time, finally, important is to the best researchers, where you can also export the idea that all this, what we learned from ancient Nalanda, is not just for having more books, but to finally get the meaning of life, which is, only as the Dalai Lama puts it very beautifully, is to be happy. Is to be happy. That is the meaning of our life, right?
As
Our
simple
meaning
as that. And profound.
And then whatever you do, it's not just to religious saying. We should really examine these things. Whatever we do in our life, even simply doing this interview, and also going for a job, going to college, writing your assignments. At the core of any action we do, the innate wish is to be happy, and that is the real meaning of our life. And this is the meaning of everyone's life, right? So if this is the meaning of life, we should create an education system where this is taught. How? By bringing the two things together. One is the intellectual understanding, and then this the ethical part of it, how to incorporate it in our daily life by making ourselves and other sentient beings very happy without any conflict.
I mean, thank you for sharing this because, so many students and even colleagues have asked me over the years, being a teacher, a professor in a university myself and a researcher, what is it all for? Like, why am I in this economics class? Why am I in this biology class? Why am I in this history course? Like, what does it all serve? Like, what is my own path? And what is it that this is supposed to aid in belief of? Like, what are the animating spirits and philosophies, the immeasurables, really, that to hone it in on? And I think that this is also a key way in which this feeling of loneliness can be overcome through greater sense of purpose, dhamma, right? A sense of duty and purpose, but as well as a sense of like what's it for? Is it just so I can pay off my student debt and then get a job and kind of like that's that? It's kind of like more a relief, or is it an experience to truly engage in the joy of learning, which you shared with us early in this interview, really transformed you and has transformed me so much in my life as well. So I have a final question for you, and then we will close our this just initial short conversation, and we will get access. We'll write down all the resources and texts that you mentioned so people can access them as well, and some of the incredible resources that are available to us in the U.S. or in other countries as well, like taking your course or taking courses with Tibet House in Delhi, or many other resources that are there. In my own case, before I started to become more and more practicing some of the Brahma Viharas that we discussed, the immeasurables, I was a student of Thich Nhat Hanh, as the great Vietnamese teacher who really helped bring things into present day awareness, like bringing these experiences into the real, standing up against climate change issues, but doing it from a place of purpose and care rather than anger and disillusion. So to just as a final question for you, and my just true gratitude for your time, for your insights, for how well and deeply you explain things. I've really learned a lot. So I've experienced a lot of joy just from listening to you. So I want to ask you about, being a female monk. And I know that this is not always common in most religious traditions, including Buddhist traditions. And, what is the significance of that in your mind or in your own life? How has that been for you and others? And I also want to ask you, if appropriate, your own vision of a utopia, as this podcast is called Utopias. If that, of course, this is a book that was written cynically as a satire by Sir Thomas More. You know this as a literary scholar as well. But at the same time, we're trying to take that term back to think more about what is the world and life we wish to live.
So before I answer your question, as you said that I fully agree with you that not just speaking, we have to give resources, right? Because to list that this we should do, everybody does, right? Since childhood, parents do, teachers do, right? Now we have to tell them how to do that, right? So as I said, this, just as we spend time, 99% of our time to body, at least 5% for mind also, right? So, and I fully agree that people have their own jobs, people have their own lives. So then how to learn. So as I mentioned in my previous answer, and also which I have benefited personally, because the Tibet House courses, the Delhi Tibet House courses, Nalanda courses, Nalanda diploma course, certificate course, master's course, they are designed to cater the needs of the people who are busy with other things. Like even if they are university students or professionals, these are very, very comfortable time, and also a very systematic, because we need to learn this for a while so that we know how to apply it in our life, right? Just to one talk or one reading will not change our cognitive perception, because it has hardened. So to transform this cognitive discernment or cognitive perception, we need more reasons, we need more insights, we need constant study and the reminders, we need constant inspiration, we need more encouraging stories, we need more experiences. With that vision, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he inaugurated the Nalanda courses at Tibet House in 2016, which has successfully, taught, I think, more than now 7,000 students from all over the world. So if anybody is interested, please, they can go to the Tibet House website, and there they will find many options to see the course. They, for example, 2-month courses there, 1-year courses there, and 5-year, those who want to go into deeper, so that when they feel the transformation, they will definitely feel how to, know it completely. So all these different courses are designed under the guidance of Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdula, who, as you said, has been interpreter to His Holiness the Dalai Lama for many years, and who is a exposure to university curriculum taught at the universities. So he knows the today's education system so well, and also he being a teacher associated with many scientists for his translations and research works. So he knows the human psyche also. So that makes him a very unique teacher of ancient wisdom with the modern blend. And that's why, people can, because this is a very key thing, that, okay, ancient wisdom providing in the context of the modern scenario. This is very important, right? Because otherwise we sometimes, not able to relate with it, right? So this skill is there when it comes to Nalanda courses, and that they can be benefited. So I would like to share this. And the second thing that you asked about my own becoming a monk or nun. So as I said, my journey started with, like how I would say that, what Prince Siddhartha taught, and especially wisdom of emptiness, universal love and compassion, and how they can change our cognitive perception. And they are so beneficial. When I saw the benefit of this wisdom of emptiness and the mind of universal compassion, which we call bodhicitta, right, which we may discuss in another setup. So these two things, really blew my mind. And also when I saw the benefit of, through studying it regular, I studied at Nalanda Master's Course 6-year program, and then meditating on it on a daily basis, I saw the cognitive transformation. I saw the what do you call it, dawning of the fearlessness. I won't say that complete fearlessness, but a glimpse of fearlessness, glimpse of freedom, glimpse of expansiveness of the mind, glimpse of the joy that, okay, it's not necessary, if you want to excel, you have to be jealous, right? You have to put others down. You have to be very, what do you call it, in a very destructive way. You have to be competitive. Not necessary, right? You can excel, you can be happy while others are also happy. It's not necessary that you have to be jealous if you want to excel, right? So that was a great relief for me, that, oh, this is also a way of, learning. This is also a way of living. So that is the ancient Nalanda wisdom which Buddha taught, and then, really preserved, researched, and examined by the Nalanda masters and inculcated by them. So this is this made me that, okay, finally, if this is how we can live, why should we suffer, right? Why should we suffer? Why should anybody suffer? That made my mind to go deeper into that. And I decided to take this journey where to solely, focus on this, and see the ways and means where I can share it with others also, right? Share it with others also. And for that, taking this step of becoming a female monk, what you call nun, was very beneficial to, remain focused on the meaning of life, which is happiness for myself and all sentient beings.
True gratitude and appreciation for all that I and we learned in this conversation. And this, I hope, will just be the first of many conversations. And I hope we, all of us, will have an opportunity to learn more from you. And I will personally hope to come and visit you in Nalanda University in beautiful India soon. So thank you so much, Venerable Dabral.
Thank you very much. And once again, I thank you so much for this podcast. I see a great need of these kind of sharings, not just for any other reason. While the social media is sharing a lot, in that ocean, we need the drop of wisdom. We need the drop of this joy, right? And this podcast, Utopia, that you are doing, it's a commendable thing. I really wholeheartedly rejoice and really appreciative of that. This kind of thing should happen. And of course, challenges will be there, obstacles will be there, difficulties will be there, but Venerable Geshe-la puts it so beautifully. He says that the you know the world will not go down because bad things are there. World will go down only when the good retrieves. So
Mm.
if it's a drop in the ocean, this drop should be there. We should continue to deposit something good, which is this podcast is inclined to. So therefore, I really appreciate this effort. And even one person being benefited with this, it's like a ripple effect. Ripple effect. That person, interdependence is connected to other people, and those people will share it with others, and this is how the transformation happens. Just as the negativity spread, the happiness also spread like this. So I really really thank you for this effort. I really congratulate you, and whatever I can do, I'll be very happy.
Thank you. Thank you. Our gratitude. Hi, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Our podcast is really focused on creativity, on care, on stories of inspiration, and inspiring characters of all kinds. It's such a wonderful, wonderful way to reach community. This is a labor of love. So the real way we can sustain ourselves is through all of your support. Please rate, ideally 5 stars. Please share this with anyone and everyone you know, and feel free to reach out to us also with suggestions on guests. Reach us at podcastutopias@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for your support.